Toastmaster of the day, fellow Toastmasters and guests. It was March 7th, 2020, and we were at the Golden Tulip here in Ruby for the 2020 area contest, Area 51. And I was participating in 3 different categories. So I was obviously very tensed. So to get rid of my tension, I was just flipping through the newspapers of the day. Then one bit of information caught my eye. It was that the cruise ship that I was supposed to take on the River Nile on that day had been quarantined. There were COVID cases on board. I quickly had a look. I saw that several other ships around the world, cruise ships, were getting quarantined. COVID was gathering steam. I had felt very unhappy that I was going to miss the Nile cruise because of the area contest. But that moment, I was really thankful for the area contest for having been fixed on that day because I had missed the Nile cruise. But I may have missed catching COVID or being on that cruise. But the world saw from that day onwards huge turmoil. We were seeing increasing number of COVID cases, increased hospitalization, increased number of people going into the ICUs, and increased deaths. There were bits and pieces of good news coming out that some vaccine is being developed. Chloroquine has worked on a few patients. There is some magic formula called remdesivir, which is going to come out, which may be useful. But by and large, it was bad news and bad news and bad news. Companies, businesses shutting down. So many employees being rendered jobless. And we saw the plight of migrant workers throughout the world. It was pathetic. They had nowhere to go. They had become destitutes overnight. Then we saw businesses, especially the small businessmen, all becoming bankrupt overnight. COVID touched all of us. Is there anyone in this room whom it did not touch? Anyone? Can you put up your hand that COVID did not touch? I think it touched all of us. My son was stuck in India for 4 months. No way I could bring him back into Oman, and his college was all closed, thrown out of the hostels. So everybody had one personal story. I had one of my friends, my classmates, so he's 250 plus. He thought he was going on a nice trip to Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. After he landed there, he realized he was stuck there. The first month he spent sending out representations to the consulate, the Indian consulate, asking, can we be evacuated, please? Then the second month he spent spending some time writing to the ministers in India, can I be pulled out of Kingston, please? Then the third month, he took up to social media, making small films and posting them on YouTube and on Instagram, asking for help. So he came to be known in our group as the petitions man. So you want a petition, contact Mr. Manure. He knows how to make the right petition. Jokes apart, that was the condition of many people who were stuck. And even within my family, I saw that my aged dad, on one side, you had doctors and nurses working really, really hard. Those who were in the forefront of fighting COVID. They were battling it out, the frontline workers. But on the other hand, you had the other doctors, the other ailments not taking any center stage. There were people with multiple other problems who were not getting proper medical health. That continues to this day. My dad, who's well into his 80s, he had multiple problems and he goes to the GP sends him to the cardio. When the cardiologist sees him, he sends him to the urologist, and the urologist sends him back to the GP, and again the GP sends him to a skin doctor. I mean, as if a round robin was happening. Doctors were pushing from pillar to post, not having a look at the patient, but of course, charging, getting their money. But this was a real problem, even doctors not attending to patients for the fear of COVID. I think it has affected all of us in many, many ways than one. At the individual level, we have all gone through some kind of stress, either being a job loss or illnesses. At the family level, there's been an income loss perhaps, many other frictions of kinds. At the society level, we have been now taught that, basically everybody is COVID positive unless they are ruled out as negative. That kind of an approach. Maintain that approach so that you are safe. That's to the extent that it has affected our society. It's affected our institutions. Our hospitals have started crumbling due to the weight of COVID. Our schools have practically shut down. Those physical buildings that we have all around the place, we don't know what role they have got because all the classes are going on Zoom. So very institutions' relevance is being called into question. And of course, you have government struggling with the economy. Where do they get the money to handle this situation? So we have had issues at all levels. And then this evening, I'm coming in front of you and saying that you should become ready for the future. So you're going to ask me, what, are you joking, KK? If you're all in such great turmoil and you're asking us to get ready for the future, what's wrong with you? Well, what better time than today than for us to really get into our basics and ask, how do we get ready for the future? This is not the last of the pandemics. This is not last of our problems. After COVID goes away, do you think we are back to normal? No, something else is going to come, of course. So how ready are we for our future? I thought of things at 3 different levels when I reflected on this issue. One I thought was at the very materialistic level. What solutions could be found? At another level, I thought of an evolutionary kind of a solution for our issues. And the third, I thought of an altruistic kind of a solution. These are basically what I could think of, how I could prepare, how the world could prepare for tomorrow. Let's hit the materialistic very fast and quick. I think, how many of you have credit cards? How many of you have credit cards? I'm sure everybody, almost, yeah. Madan says, no, nice, good, safe man. So, have you seen the squirrels collect those nuts and burying them into the ground just before winter? So many other animals pick up food and store them. We call them very cheaply as hoarding. It's not their animal language. It's we who say the animals are hoarding food for the winter. It's actually that these animals are saving for a rainy day. And so did our forefathers when they said, save for a rainy day. So what have we done? We flip our credit card, swipe anywhere we want, spend, hoping that we can pay tomorrow. So that's perhaps the first material lesson that we can learn today. That you need to be liquid for the next 1 year in anticipation of problem. Any year, not just this year, not 2021. I mean, throughout life. Have enough liquidity for 1 full year. And have enough cash for at least 6 months looking forward. So these are extremely simple material solutions that I am giving. Of course, a couple of other material solutions I would give is to take a good medical insurance and take a good life insurance so that you protect your family and yourself from any unexpected expenditure. And importantly, plan all your life events. A life event would be sending your children to college, getting your children married off at your expense, of course. If they can do it at their own expense, it's different, but if it's your expense. These are some of simple tips at a materialistic level that I could do so that we are ready for the future. Moving forward, evolutionary that I said. Charles Darwin, you know his famous theory that we all came from the apes. He basically said one simple thing. All those other masalas that we added coming from the apes and other things, he simply said that species that adapt themselves to their environment do well. And then somebody else said it's the survival of the fittest, and I agreed with him. That's a different matter. But again, he didn't say that, those first few words. He said you adapt to your environment and that species survives. Now, are we adapting? That's the question. You find in your environment, there's a paradigm shift. There could be a paradigm shift. In the sense you don't have, say, telex today. We don't talk about anybody selling telex machines or telex operators. Fax should be gone. So this is a paradigm shift in the society. Now you're finding that theaters don't have business. So we don't know what's going to be the future of theaters, say, cinema theaters. Is it going to be all available on the television at home? So look out in the environment for paradigm shifts. There are certain fields that are not going to exist anymore. Move out of them. Look at your knowledge base. Unless you are current in your knowledge base, you are going nowhere. If you know how to repair radios, it's not enough if your knowledge is limited to it. If you only can shift from repairing your radios to, say, repairing mobile phones, or servicing mobile phones, then you're going to survive. So look at how you can evolve. The skill sets. Are we adapting our skill sets today? Information technology has come into our life is filled with technology. So are we ready with our skills to use the technology? In my own field, I see that no more do we use any drawing boards to do. We all use computers to draw. What's the way we communicate now? We are communicating on Zoom. We are no more using even phones. So there's a huge shift in all these things, and you need to be ready with your knowledge, your skills, your environment. And one point that I would emphasize here is we'd like to live as tribes. A human being is a social animal. We like to stay in small groups as tribes. And as professionals, we are no different. So look out for every opportunity to stick around with your group, be it on LinkedIn or whatever be the platform, or Reddit or any of the platforms where you huddle together and see some common good in it and strive towards it. This is on the evolutionary basis. And then I thought of what could be the altruistic level. At the altruistic level, when you reflect, the pandemic teaches you one thing. It can just strike you and you are gone. The pandemic knows no caste, no religion, no color. Whether you're a rich man, you're a poor man, whether you're a general manager or a servant, it knows nothing. It just strikes a man and he's gone. This is what it has taught us. So where is all this ego coming from of power and position? If at all we have to leave our name and fame behind, it has to be in the positive sense. This has been the truth always, but the pandemic has hit us so hard. We see just thousands and thousands dying in front of our eyes. Every day you open the television and you find thousands dying. You hear the news, so you know that death is something real. It's knocking on that door right here. It's not a far off thing. So can we realize at this moment that life is much beyond our own little prejudices, our power equations, and looking for small pleasures? Life can have much greater meaning. Can we discover that meaning? And can that meaning lie in the service to the society, to somebody who's underprivileged? And personally, I got that push when I saw these difficult times, that I was naturally moved to help. We may be in difficult conditions, but there are thousands and millions out there who are in greater difficulty, maybe in need of just one bowl of rice. That's the level of difficulty. So can we raise to that level? Can we find a new meaning to our life? Can we find a new purpose through this pandemic? And when it's gone, we know why we are here. We find a true meaning for why we are here. That could take us, that may give us a name that is indelible, at least for the time being, for a few years on the face of earth. So to kind of summarize what I'm saying, look at all the practical, pragmatic ways, not getting carried away by one or the other. Yes, we have a life here, a practical life here to live. So I'm looking at very practical suggestions, like how you manage your finances, how you take care of your tomorrow's needs in terms of emergencies, insurances, how you are going to take care of your immediate expenses, your long-term expenses, to plan for them. More importantly, plan how you are going to handle your future, because future does not lie in what you are doing today. Your future lies in new ways, in new technologies, in paradigms that still have not arrived. We are talking about people flying to Mars and people flying to outer space in the next few years. So where is our position with what we are doing? Even very simple things like attending the Toastmasters sessions. We have moved from being the physical sessions, we have moved on to the Zoom session. There is change happening all over. Do we recognize that change? Are we aligned with that change? Are we evolving to meet those challenges, those changes? I don't want to be left out as a record, as a radio repairman. I want to move as maybe the mobile serviceman. That's the kind of paradigm I'm looking at, moving, evolving over time. And finally, are we finding time? Are we finding meaning in our own lives? Because after doing all this, if we do not have a sense of what we are here for, then perhaps we may not find any meaning even living beyond COVID. If we want to live beyond COVID, there has to be a purpose. And in these difficult days, can we find that meaning? Can we find a fulfilling meaning for our life? Having said all this, do you think we are going to stop any pandemic striking us again? KK, are you giving us guarantees that if we do all this thing, nothing is going to strike us? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is things are going to come back again and again. It's a cyclical world. It's a world of karma. It's going to be, it's everything is cyclic. It's going to happen again. We have seen the ups and downs, the stock market's going down, the stock market's coming up, the global economy going down, the global economy coming up. We have seen these cycles happening over and over and over again. And these things too will happen, maybe in our lifetime once more, or may not happen in our lifetime. But these things sure do happen. There is perhaps not a pandemic, but something else awaiting us. And there is no point in feigning ignorance or just pretending to avoid it. because when it happens, it happens. What we can do is to prepare ourselves at the emotional, physical levels so that we can handle these difficulties. So these tips that I'm leaving with you this evening of the 3 levels will not stop difficulties coming, but it's definitely going to empower all of us, each one of us, to handle these difficulties in a much more enlightened way. Over to the Toastmaster of the day.